Good morning, Latin 2 students, excuse me. It's good to be back with you guys. I hope you had a really good Easter time with your families. Enjoyed having that 3-day weekend. Everything went really well. I wanted to get back with you today so we can keep working on our chapter on regular verbs, irregular adjectives, irregular comparison, regular superlatives. And we're getting ready for a quiz on chapter 34 by the end of this week. We'll have a quiz on Friday. So all this week, I want to make sure I'm giving you some help and you can go over your homework here. You can come see me during my office hours if anything doesn't make sense about the homework, about the assignments. I'll give you some practice. And the last quiz averages were pretty good. I was impressed and glad to see that. So I want to keep that up on the next quiz after this. Now that you've had one online quiz, you know what to expect, you know what they look like, and I'd love to keep that going. So make sure you've done exercise B on page 196 before you go over this. Even if you don't get it all right, it's so helpful to have done it and to be able to see here, okay, I got that right, or I didn't understand that, and it kind of clicks in your head as you go over it. So make sure you've done that first, and then watch my video here going over exercise B as we get ready for the quiz, okay? What are we dealing with this chapter? We're dealing with certain types of irregular comparison. Specifically, it's the adjectives ending in ER have irregular superlatives. Some of the adjectives ending in their base ends in L, like illis, like similis, dissimilis, faucilus, and difficilus. Those have irregular superlatives also. And then the words ending in eus or ius, like aureus and adonius, they have quite irregular forms too. So we'll see those in some of these sentences. And also, you have to learn certain adjectives that take the dative. Those are all listed on page 195 in this chapter, so you want to be practicing and studying which verbs naturally take the dative to complete their meaning. That is a crucial list of verbs to learn. Okay, so as I go through this, you can feel free to stop it or pause it or something if I go too quick or something. I'm going to tell you how to translate here. Okay, the first one was, excuse me, cur marci amicus mihi inimiциssimus est. Okay, and I'll give you the translation that I came up with. So why is Marcus's friend very hostile or very unfriendly to me? Okay, why is Marcus's friend very unfriendly to me? So it's a question. It starts with cur, which is a question word. Amicus is the subject because it is nominative singular. Probably the most important thing in this sentence is the unfriendly to me part. Amicus is one of those adjectives that takes the dative to complete its meaning, and so mihi is the dative here, unfriendly to me. That's why this particular one is dative. We would call it dative with special adjective. By the way, what degree here, inimiциssimus, this is the superlative degree, right? Okay, so let's head on to number 2. Maybe number 2 was a tricky one, but I'll give you the answer here and you can see if you did it okay. So the sailors of our country today are very dissimilar or very unlike those who were sailing in the sea between Britain and Gaul. Okay, I'll say it again to make sure you got it here. The key with this sentence is we have a relative clause here, and the antecedent of this qui, this relative clause, is eis, from those who used to sail, basically. So it's differentiating the ones nowadays and the ones that used to, the previous generation. So the sailors of our country today are very unlike those who used to sail in the sea between Britain and Gaul. Okay, so that is a little tricky. What else in this sentence to talk about? The relative clause starts with qui and also ends with navigabant. The word dissimilimi, this is the superlative. It's one of the irregular superlatives, and it's one of the ones that did an ILIS, so that's why it's dissimilimi and not dissimilimus. It's irregular, so it's if this were regular, it would be dissimilissimi. It's hard for me to think about because that's not the right form. So it's dissimilimi. You have the limus ending here. Now, why is it plural? Because it's going with sailors, which is plural. It's modifying the word sailors. So there's actually a lot there to number 2. A little reminder from Latin 1. I just saw this word mari here. A little reminder that this word is a third declension neuter I stem, and those are the only nouns whose ablative ends in a long I, as you can see here. So that's why it's in the sea. This is ablative place where. Okay, so that's a big one. There's a lot of good stuff there. Let's look at number 3. Noster exercitus cupidissimus pacis erat, postero anno tamen fortiter pugnavit. So for this one, you should have gotten something similar to our army was very desirous of peace. Here's the superlative, cupidissimus, and I want to give you a reminder. This word, cupidus, desirous, takes the genitive after it, desirous of something. So our army was very desirous of peace, okay? In the following year, nevertheless, it fought bravely. Okay, so this is one of our like a time construction, ablative time when in the following year. And fortiter, just to remind you, is the adverbial form of a third declension adjective, right? Fortis, forte is the adjective meaning brave. Fortiter is the adverb. So it fought bravely in the following year. Okay. A little reminder about this word Tommen, just as I see things to remind you of. Tommen is a postpositive word, which means it can never be the first word in the sentence or the clause, and that's why you see it following after this phrase here. Okay. So that's a breakdown of number 3. Number 4, you should have gotten something like Rome is the most beautiful of cities known to me, is what I looked at for number 4. Rome is the most beautiful of cities known to me, right? So this is like erbium is like a partitive genitive here, is the most beautiful of all the cities I know, right? So it's of a multitude of cities. So that's why this is genitive. And how do I know this adjective is modifying this word? Because this is genitive also. So of the cities known to me. What would you say is the case in use of this word here, mihi? Well, it's dative with special adjective. If you check out page 195, notus is one of the words that takes the dative to complete its meaning, okay? And you also see a superlative adjective here. That's why I said that Rome is the most beautiful of cities, because it is, excuse me, a superlative, okay? So a lot going on there. Number 4 as well. Hopefully I'm breaking these down well enough for you guys to follow up on. Number 5 is milites qui in prolio superati erant, fidelissimi imperatori erant. Okay, so this one also had a relative clause in it. I can see it here with qui. The antecedent is clearly the soldiers, because it's the only thing there that's plural before it. So the soldiers who had been conquered in battle were very faithful to the general. Okay, so the soldiers who had been conquered in battle were very faithful to the general. We see our superlative here, fidelissimi. Okay, that's a normal superlative because that word is not on the irregular list. We've been learning this chapter. And by the way, this word fidelis, faithful, takes the dative. So here's the dative, right? Faithful to the general. That's an adjective that takes the dative. This relative clause is qui in prolio superati erant. That's the relative clause, and then that's the main verb of the sentence. By the way, this verb superati erant is pluperfect passive, so that's why I said who had been conquered. Okay, so that's a breakdown of number 5. Number 6 is kind of a two-parter. That's why there's a semicolon there. So your law is more suitable for war than for peace. Okay, now, let me break down a few things here. This word Adonius is one of those very irregular words that in IUS or EUS. There's only a few of them, Adonius and Aureus. Basically, they add magus to make the comparative, and they add maxime in front of them to make the superlative. So they're pretty irregular. So this is the comparative, magus Adonia. What is this agreeing with? It's agreeing with law. Lex is feminine. That's why this has a feminine ending. Okay. Also, the word Adonius takes the dative to complete its meaning, suitable. That's why bello is dative, and that's why paki is dative. So your law is more suitable for war than for peace. Mine is equally pleasing to the citizens and soldiers. Mea implying my law. They don't repeat the word lex, but it's implied since this word is feminine. So mine is equally pleasing to citizens and soldiers. So this word gratus, grata, takes the dative. That's why civibus and militibus are dative, pleasing to the citizens. And what form is aeque here? Aeque. Well, this is the adverbial form of aequus. That's why I said equally pleasing to citizens and soldiers. Okay, so a lot there in number 6. Hopefully you got that. Again, it's very rare to get all these sentences perfectly correct. So you want to look, see what you're getting right, what you're getting wrong. That's how you prepare for the next quiz and increase your translation skills. All right, number 7, num potes immunire equum nobeliorum quam meum. Now, what does nu mean at the beginning of the sentence? It means that it's a question that expects a yes answer. So we have to translate like that, right? So You aren't able to find a horse more noble than mine, are you? Sounds like I expect a yes answer. Or sorry, a no answer, noom. So you're not able to find a horse more noble than mine, are you? It's kind of how you would phrase that. Now, what's going on grammatically here? Pates is from possum. We learned that a few chapters ago, and pates is the present of possum. So that's why I said, are you able? You are not able to find. This would be a complementary infinitive. You are not able to find. It's completing the meaning of pates. So it is complementary. And then finally, a horse more noble. Here's your comparative, nobiliorum. And here's the word quam, meaning there, which frequently follows a comparative. Okay, so a little review of those words questions expected no answer. If this question expected a yes answer, remember you would see none at the beginning of a sentence. And if you see just ne, that would be a word that expects no specific type of answer, just a yes or no question. Okay. What does number 8 look like? Ubi opidum propinquum videram, postero die litteras ad meos propinquos scripsi. Okay, so let me go over this with you. When I had seen the nearby town, the next day I wrote letters to my relatives or kin. Okay, so let me go over that again. When I had seen the nearby town, this is called a temporal clause because it's the time of the sentence when this happened, and this verb is pluperfect. Pluperfect active, by the way, pluperfect active. So when I had seen their nearby town, the next day, this is apple of time when, I wrote letters to my relatives. Now, what is this going on with this word propinquos? Well, technically that word means near or nearby, but when it's used as a substantive, it often means someone who is related to you. In other words, they're near you in blood. So that's why I translated it relative or kinsman, you could translate it. So I wrote letters to my relatives. So this is the main part of the sentence, and this is what we call the temporal clause. The temporal clause has its own verb, as you can see here, and here's the main verb of the sentence, scripsi, which is also perfect tense. All right, so that's number 8. Number 9, non pugnabit nisi e gladium longiorem deteris. Okay, so he will not fight, here's your main verb, unless you give him a longer sword. Okay, so he will not fight unless you give him a longer sword. Now, there's a few things going on with this sentence also. The verb here is future, but what tense is this? Deteris. This is also, it's future perfect actually from do. Technically, this sentence says he will not fight unless you will have given him a longer sword. The reason I said unless you give him a longer sword is in English, we just kind of phrase that in the present. We talked about this in class before, whereas in Latin, they're more literal, where they put it in the future perfect because that's what they mean. But in English, that sounds kind of weird. So in English, we would just say, unless you do this. It's kind of odd. This word here is dative from is, unless you give him. It's the indirect object. And then here's the direct object, a sword. Now, what could this mean? Longiorum. It's a comparative, so it could mean a longer sword. It could mean a rather long sword. Probably too long doesn't make sense in this context, but it technically could mean that. So he will not fight. This word nisi means unless or except. We just learned it recently. Okay, so a lot there. That's a conditional clause, by the way, because if or if not or unless, those are all showing conditions. And number 10 is the final one you worked on. Let's see if you got this one. Hortus in quo ambulamus est propinquus hortis carsatus. So this one's talking about the garden, right? The garden in which we are walking is near the gardens of Caesar. Okay, so we have another relative clause, which is in quo ambulamus. The garden in which we are walking, there's your relative clause, and here's the main verb, est, is near the gardens of Caesar, or Caesar's gardens. Now, what case is this right here? Hortis. Hortis. Well, that's dative, and it's dative because propinquus, near, if you check out your list of verbs that take adjectives that take the dative on page 195, propinquus does take the dative. So if you're near to something with propinquus, that were to be dative near the gardens of Caesar. So that's dative with special adjective. Okay, and Caesaris, genitive, just showing possession over the gardens. Yeah. So these sentences have a lot to them, right? We have a lot of different stuff going on with all the stuff we learned this year, and they keep adding little wrinkles to it as we do each time. You want to make sure you're mastering this chapter because we're not quite done with comparatives. There will be some more wrinkles to this in the next chapter. So I want you guys to do very, very well on this Friday's quiz. Remember that quiz is coming up. So be doing your vocab practice. Make sure you're doing your assignments like this one. And if there's still something in these sentences we just went over, I try to think of stuff, but of course I might not think of every question you might have had. I missed the questions you can ask me directly in class. I look forward to being back there with you guys. But come by my office hours and just say, hey, I didn't get this one sentence even after watching the video, and I'm happy to help you with that. Some of you already done that, and that's been good to see you and good to figure out the problems. So just make sure you guys are keeping up. I'd love to see you have a really good quiz average again on Friday. I hope you're doing very well with your families, and I'll be back tomorrow and the rest of this week with some additional practice and everything for the quiz. Okay, so have an excellent Monday, and I'll talk to you very soon. Walete.